Our mission is to help patients and their families face, fight, and overcome cancer. We feel it's really important for patients to be educated in cancer prevention and the treatment options that they have available to them. So that's one, so that they could be true advocates for themselves. The second thing that we do is we connect patients with physicians trained in mistletoe therapy and the resources that they need to make accurate decisions for their care. The third thing that we do is we provide spiritual and emotional support through distributions like the Believe mug, because we know that fear and anxiety is one of the biggest things that a patient faces when they're battling cancer. And the fourth pillar is we are now in the process of developing a mistletoe clinical trial with Johns Hopkins Hospital. Because once this trial is completed, individuals, patients can actually go to an oncologist and get this form of treatment. We want mistletoe therapy to become standard of care, and the mistletoe clinical trial will allow it to be so. At the age of 37, I was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. I remember sitting in the waiting room and just looking around and realizing that the faces that I was looking into were full of fear and anxiety, fear of what the physicians were going to say, fear of what the tests were going to show. And I knew that God had Jimmy and I there for a reason. Friends were saying, how can we help? How can we support you and the patients that you're around each day? And I remember glancing down and seeing a mug that my kids had painted years ago when they were little, 3 and 4 years old, and knew that was the mug that I kept pulling out every morning because it brought me smiles. So Believe mugs actually got started from friends, people in the community coming together, wanting to encourage patients, and they went ahead and painted them, and we would bring them in during our appointments. And my husband had created this I will have no fear prayer that we would put inside each one as a source of encouragement. So, because we know that, you know, when you're going through that, you're grasping at anything that you can to get through whatever that day holds. And then once I got well, we then started Believe Big because we wanted to help bridge that gap between complementary and conventional medicine for fighting cancer so that patients could have the right tools in front of them to be well. We wanted to offer them hope, help, and healing. You know, I remember going into that physician, 2 people from 2 different walks from life in the very same week said, I need to speak to Dr. Hindenburger, who is my anthroposophic physician trained in mistletoe therapy, homeopathy, and other natural remedies. And I remember sitting in his office and him saying, you guys have done great research. You're on track with your diet. You're on track with supplements. But there's something else that you need. You have cancer. And you need something that's going to attack those cancer cells, but not attack your good cells. And that's where mistletoe comes in. And I remember looking at Jimmy and saying, wait, isn't that what we see at Christmas time? And he's like, yes. And it's actually been used for over 90 years all over the world, except for here, for cancer treatment. And they actually take the extract of the mistletoe plant, and based on the type of cancer, based on the staging of cancer, will determine the extract strength that you will need to use, and that is determined on your treatment course. So mistletoe is an amazing plant. It actually helps to kill the cancer cells without hurting your good cells. It helps with tumor-related pain. For individuals who want to do it alongside of conventional treatments like chemotherapy and radiation, it actually offsets the negative side effects like the nausea, the vomiting, the lack of sleep that a lot of patients experience. And in my case as well, and many others, it also helps to prevent recurrence of cancer. Believe Big, actually, when we're trying to think of the name of what would represent what we're trying to teach people, what we're trying to show people as a nonprofit, you know, actually that year that I was battling cancer, every year my family and I pick a word that we feel God's gonna show to us that will represent that year, what we focus in on. Instead of New Year's resolutions that tend to die off after 30 days, we really seek, you know, look up, look in, and within to see what's that word that's gonna encompass the year. And for me, that year was actually believe. I knew I needed that word because, and God gave me that word because I needed to believe that I could be well. I needed to believe that nothing's impossible with him. And I believed that he was with me no matter how it turned out. So as we're thinking of names and that process, my husband's like, well, Elise, we're trying to tell people to believe, but it needs to be more than just believe. They need to believe big, that circumstances in life are going to happen, but not only believing is important, but believing big. And that's where it all began.